everyone, welcome back to the Creator Shelf, and you are joining me on a cloudy and cold day in Brussels. Well, it's not that cold, but basically, yeah, we've started autumn, and this week's topic is going to be on the theme of creepy slash Halloween slash Samhain slash spooky. I mean, you get the gist, you get the theme. Decks that basically are perfect for this time of year. I'm answering to a video that's been done by, I think it's called Elemental Cartomancy. He's done the tag spooky season deck. That's what his tag is, which I'm going to link below. And I didn't actually see his video first. I saw Hermit's Cave response to that, which I caught, and then yeah, so basically I thought, okay, this is a perfect tag for me to do today. Now, just before I begin, some of my decks are, well, a few of my decks are held to ransom in my birthday basket. Basically, I have a birthday basket and I have a Christmas basket, and I sometimes get things in advance and I put them into those baskets, and now I don't know what's in which basket, to be honest with you, and I don't know, there's some spooky, creepy decks in there as well, but my birthday is not till the end of this month, so I'm just gonna have to wait. That's how it goes. But until then, I thought I would share some decks that I already have, which I've opened, I've either used or liked or just gone through, and maybe it's decks for you to consider. So further ado, now these are all mass market decks. I still don't have an indie spooky deck. That will hopefully change soon. But in the meantime, let me start off with one of the first ones that I bought last year. Now, I bought this in August, and this is the Santa Muerta deck, and the illustrator is Fabio Listrani. He also did the Sun and Night tarot deck, I think that's what it's called, which is also popular amongst some people. I just only have the Santa Muerta, and I also have the Oracle actually of this as well. But this is a low Scarabeo deck, and it retails, I think, around 18 euros or 20 euros, or it's really not that much. You can find it on Amazon or Book Depository. So here we go. These are the backs. Now now Fabio Listrani is a famous tattoo artist, as well as I recall and believe, just a famous artist basically. And these are the backs, which I think are beautiful. And the deck itself is just really, really gorgeous. The colors, the attention to detail, the artwork, each of these characters, the life in them is just so strong. And I think that's one of the things that I love about this deck, that it's looking at death, but it's so full of life. And I absolutely love how he has positioned the florals, the greens in this deck. So even though we're dealing with the afterlife, it really just feels like, you know, like we're still in the present moment. We're still very much alive. That's the best way I can put it. And I personally love the art. I find this deck really interesting to use. I think it can be really, really tough. And one thing I found when I did do draws with this deck was to keep the layout really, really simple. If I have too many of these all over the table, it can be quite kind of like, it can just be too much for me. So for me, like pulling 2 or 3 cards out of this deck maximum, mixing it with either another tarot deck or an oracle deck, I think is the best way for me to go. Look at that card. So yeah, I mean, that has got to be one of the most beautiful hierophants I've ever seen. So I think the illustrator has done a phenomenal job. I love this very pregnant death card. She really captures me actually. I think this deck makes me laugh a bit. There's a part of it that's just there's a lot of wicked humor. That's the best way I can put it. There's dry wicked humor in this deck, and I know it's not for everyone. Some people, they find it too garish. They find it like too much. People have said, "Oh, we're disappointed," and I've heard a lot of comments about this deck of people. It's a bit, I guess it's like Marmite. Some like it and some don't. So I'm one of those people that loves it. It's a spooky deck. If you're looking for something, even just to put in the middle of like a reading to capture the essence, one of these cards I think does it just so well. So yeah, so this is the Santa Muerta by Fabiola Strani. So sorry, that was my cat. He's just trying to climb on board. Hey, honey. So the next deck that I'm going to show you is let me show you the Deviant Moon. Now I've already shown this one recently in one of my videos, but still I'm going to bring her out. This is, I mean, the theme is meant to be spooky decks, right? But I would classify this really as a creepy deck, more than spooky even. But I love her. She is just so the artist is Patrick, I need to get his name right, Patrick Valenza, and he's also done the Trionfi della Luna, which I know some people really love. That's more of like a Pip Tarot de Marseille deck. This is more on the Rider-Waite-Smith system. I think it is phenomenal. I think the art is gorgeous. I think the scenes are extremely how can I put it? The images tell their story very well. I don't personally feel the need to have to really try and figure out what's it saying to me. It's almost like the cards are very kind of like, this is a statement I'm making and you better hear me. Again, with this deck, I can't use too many cards at the same time. A bit similar to the Santa Muerta in that sense. I find that the cards are just there's so much energy in each card, there's so much depth that too many of these cards and I could get really lost. I think I just need 2 or 3 sometimes for a pull and it's enough, and that actually makes this deck really easy to work with when you want to do a short reading, I believe. So I love the Queen of Wands in many decks. She's one of my favorite cards, but I mean in this one, I mean look at her. I mean that's a statement there. That's a statement of just being able to you know, it's slightly that goddess energy, but she's also got that slight high priestess energy. That's what I'm also seeing. The way, you know, this one leg showing, it reminds me a bit of that Angelina Jolie moment where she's got this one leg showing at a premiere, kind of like in a statement look. It reminds me a bit of that actually. But the fact that, you know, she's got such a strong statement. I find sometimes with Patrick Valenza's art, one of the things that can be really jarring is the chest area, the torso, because he does show ribs very often in a lot of his artwork. Not in everyone. Now that 3 of Swords is phenomenal. Not in every piece, but in some of the pieces you really will see again the ribs. And I've noticed that especially with women because we're seeing breasts as well. And the art is very strange. I admit that, but I love it. And it's a deck that just, yeah, it kind of like draws me in, and then I end up just sitting there looking at one card for a really long time. It's that kind of deck. I haven't done that many readings with it. I think I use it more with myself, I guess. Sometimes I just sit there and I look through the cards, to be quite honest with you, because I just like them so much. And I need to do a bit of a mod with this deck. I think this deck requires some mods, some edging. And so, yeah, that's going to be one of my projects, I think, this month. But, yeah, I mean, if you haven't got it already, I recommend it. It's a US Games deck, so very easy to get hold of again on the major websites. So that was the Deviant Moon. Moving swiftly on. Now, this is a deck. I'm not sure if it's spooky. I'm not sure if it's creepy. I would regard this as disturbing. So this is what this video has become. This video has become different adjectives actually to this theme. So this is, I find, as a disturbing deck. It's another Lo Scarabeo deck, and it is the Ceccoli Tarot. Now, I don't have the Oracle. I'm thinking of getting the Oracle actually because I love the art, and I, honestly speaking, I don't think this feels like a tarot deck to me. It feels a bit more like an Oracle deck. But the art is just gorgeous. She is She is, you don't have to call her she, you can call him a he as well. Yeah, they are creepy. So far when I've used this deck, it's almost like one card has such a strong energy of come play with me and let me show you some things. And of course it's not that sweet innocence though. So there's a lot to be said in this deck. I'm still trying to understand the Ceccoli Tarot, and what I've heard from people is that it's taken them time to bond with this deck, or to, I don't know how to put it. It's almost like there's a feeling of having to really spend time with her in order to understand her. I find that the images are just, this is the kind of deck that really kind of like speaks to my, I think it just speaks to kind of like a lot of self-worth, but also self-sabotage and the darker side. So I know people use the term shadow and all this. I just think of it as more of the side that is having trouble with life, or whatever, however you want to put it. And this really will speak to the resistance within me, the resistance to the life force. And it's an exploratory deck. That's the best way I can put it. So we've had so far creepy, and now we've got disturbing, exploratory. These are the adjectives I'm using. Not always spooky, but I mean, can you get I mean, look at that devil card. Absolutely magnificent. I mean, her art is just gorgeous, but this is the kind of deck which I would need to spend time with. I wouldn't be able to do like, oh, let's pull some card this morning and just throw out a couple of cards and then just walk off to work. I would find it a little bit worrisome, actually. So if I had these kind of images on my mind all day. But yeah, I love this. I love this deck, and I think it's making me actually want the Oracle more than the Tarot. And I haven't got the guts to do it because I think it would be difficult, but I'd love to mod her and take off some of the borders. The problem is that I don't find that the cards are actually closely correlating to the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And for that reason, I actually need the titles to help me understand what I'm looking at. Like, you know, for in this one, if I'm looking at, let's say this is the Cups and this is a Knight, so this is the Knight of Cups. You know, now what a suggestive position she's holding as well. But you know, this is a deck. This is the Eight of Wands, where I really would need the key in order to help me understand the image. But at the same time, I think this is a deck which also I could take all the keys off and just work with the image in itself. So this is the Ceccoli Tarot. And yeah, and I would classify her as disturbing, but I think she's a wonder to work with. Again, low Scarabeo, so very, very quickly available on the major websites, platforms. So my next creepy deck, now I'm going through all the tarots first and then I'm going to go through the oracles. My next creepy deck, you're going to have to bear with me because it's halfway through a mod, and that is the Haunted House Tarot. Now this is another low Scarabeo deck, so low Scarabeos and I are doing well together on this one, this theme. I bought this recently back in the summer for Halloween period, so this is what I bought it for. And these are the cards. Now this is a borderless deck, slightly glossy. Here's the key at the bottom, very simply done. And this reminds me of like haunted house movies. That's the best way I can put it. American haunted house movies. What I grew up on, basically, for my spooky kind of like. Now this is a spooky deck, right? So we were talking about spooky decks. For me, this is spooky. This deck is a little bit disturbing for sure, but it's more spooky. And I really, really love this deck, actually. It surprised me how much I love it. I'm in the middle of edging it, and I'm not going to show you the edging because, like, yeah, so let me take a pause here and in the middle of this talk about deck modifications. I haven't done deck modifications. I think I'm just too precious with my decks. I think that's the word. And so we all know, like, one of the queen of modding is Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and I've been watching some of her deck mod videos again, you know, just to pluck up the courage. And I even thought, yeah, I'll put it on as I edge the deck. And she's got this fantastic deck modding like tutorial. You can find it on her YouTube channel, Boho Tarot. But what's also good is she's also got deck mod fails, so you know, it's just good to watch all those videos. So anyway, I watched those videos, and along that line I kind of like have been edging this deck. And let me tell you that, like, what she says is right, as in, like, take time, don't try and do it in a rush, do it on some practice cards. So these are like the cover cards that you get in a deck. I practiced on these. And the other thing is that I'm currently using like a cheap marker that you get from like the dollar store. We have a store here called Action, and it sells basically everything from like toilet brushes to, like, you know, like advent calendars. It sells all those kind of things, and I love it. It's a Dutch kind of like dollar store. It sells everything, and I went and got some markers, and they're actually really doing a good job on this deck. It's just, for me, the learning of what I'm actually doing is just great. But it's helping me really bond with this deck, and I love this deck now. I really do. Like, I love the images. This is the strength card. I mean, look at her. Yeah, I mean, it's Rider-Waite-Smith, but yeah, I'm really liking this deck. This is the deck that I could see myself using any time of the year, you know, because, yeah, I know I would take it out at Halloween, but I like her so much that I wouldn't mind going back to her in the middle of summer even. That's how much I like her. And yeah, I love the deck. I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's reminding me of being young and watching, like, you know, I've watched kind of like the Hammer movies when I was like really, really young, like 5 or 6. Now the Hammer movies are 1970s British productions of horror films. They're mostly like Dracula with what's his name? It's gonna have my mind now. The guy who played well, it's not Christopher Lee necessarily. There's Christopher Lee, but I'm thinking of the guy who plays Van Helsing, because he's always on my mind. If anybody remembers from the Hammer films, the guy who plays Van Helsing, please put the actor's name below, because I love him. I love him as, like, I think he's passed away now. Peter Cushing, that's it. Is it Peter Cushing? But I love those 70s horror actors. I mean, I really do. And then when I was in the 80s, I remember when I was young, I watched Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, those 70s and 80s horror films are badass. I remember The Fog, and then if anybody remember this genre and that specific era of time where people really, like, you know, you're telling them don't go towards that weird, creepy fog, mist hidden lake or house, and then some character is running for her life towards it, you know, you're just like, and you know, as a kid just watching through my hands. But I loved all of that. And for some reason this deck reminds me of that. It reminds me of Amityville horror movies. Yeah, maybe we should do like on TarotTube, we should do like videos on like horror films and decks that remind us of horror films. I'd love to hear people's take on that. But yeah, I'm somebody that grew up on those Hammer horror films, and then I grew up on so that's British production. Then I watched a lot of the American stuff, and then later on, there was a period in the UK where we used to have this channel called Channel 4. And I don't know what they did, but I think they bought like a mass of like films from Hong Kong or from China or from both. At the time they were separate. And there were translations at the bottom, and some of them were really spooky. So I ended up watching those as well. And just, yeah, so my whole, sorry, I dropped a card there. My whole kind of like, I mean, look at her. Oh, look at that. So yeah, this is the world. This is her saying, come and be part of this mansion. I think Lo Scarabia did a fantastic job actually with this deck. Let me get the name of the author because I think it's always right. Oh, it's Sasha Graham. Of course, it's Sasha Graham, and it's Mirko Pierfederici. Mirko Pierfederici. So let me see who's done what actually. See, this is when I go down a rabbit hole, and then you guys are all sitting there waiting for me. So Sarah Graham, is she the author? Or is she, well, I think she's the author, right? She must, because I know she's done the Darkwood as well. Is she the author? And then he's the I'm sure there's about 10 of you looking at this video going, we know the answer, we don't need you to tell us the answer. So I won't keep you any longer, but yeah, she is just, yeah, she's done a fantastic job, and him, Mirko Pierfederici, and I love this deck. I really do. Like, I'm surprised how much. I'm really surprised at how much I love it. You know. If any of you have thought about getting this deck and haven't bought it yet, I mean, it's like 20 euros. What, $23? I mean, yeah, or if maybe you can get it on sale from Los Scarabeo or Llewellyn. These are the backs. Yeah, so Tarot of Haunted House. Yeah. So the next deck that I'll show you quickly, I'm not sure if I want to go through these because I think I've already done that quite a bit, but this is Tarot de Fuego. I got this recently. I'll show anybody who hasn't seen one of my more recent videos. I'll just pull out a few cards from it. Oh, we're already at 20 minutes, so I better hurry up. So, yeah, I mean, look at these cards. Oh, that's the cover card. You don't need that. Yeah, these are the backs. So I won't go through it so much. It's bright, it's in your face. You can use it any time of year. Maybe not spooky, but weird. So this is the weird adjective that I'm going to use for this deck. So we've had and who is this by? Of course, this is Ricardo Cavolo, Spanish artist. And I'm not going to go through it because we're going to lose just too much time. But this is the Hush Tarot. I classify as a thorny deck. So if we see, I said I wasn't going to go through it, and now I'm going through it. So if we want an adjective for this deck, I'd consider it thorny. It is spiky. It's kind of like roses, where we touch the rose and we're thinking it's so beautiful. It's like, ah, that hurts. And that's the best way I can describe this deck. I love her. Even though there's a huge mistake in the guidebook that annoyed the hell out of me originally. So I want to point out that I kind of like, this deck went into purgatory for a while for sure. But, you know, I just thought it's there. A lot of people like it. Just give it a try. The images are just awesome. Sometimes I feel it's a bit more of an oracle than a tarot for me. But however you want to use it, the adjective for this deck is thorny. And these are the backs. And yeah, maybe that's what I need to do, is create my own tag. And it's kind of like called, I don't know, seasonal October decks. Use these adjectives and tell me what you would pair with those adjectives. So I'm going to go through now the rest quickly. My final tarot deck for creepy crawly kind of things is Darkwood Tarot. If there was an adjective for this one, I would call it shadow. And the reason why I would use the word shadow is because the colors of this deck are just, they put me into twilight. And I'm not going to go through the deck a lot because this is going to be my deep dive end of month review. So that's what's going to come up at the end of October. But the deck, if I wanted to give it adjective, it'd be, I guess, shadow. I love twilight. I love twilight and I love sunrise. It's one of the reasons why I live in Europe specifically. I've lived in other countries. I've lived in India. I've lived in Dubai. I've lived in the UK as well, of course. I'm born in the UK, but for me, twilight is a really important element of my life. I don't know how to put it. My sensory, I don't know what to put it, like nourishment is via twilight to an extent. And whenever I've lived in countries where we have very little twilight, because the closer you get to the equator, the less twilight we have, given how the sun sets. And the more we go towards the poles, whether it's south or north pole, the stronger the twilight time. And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I live in Europe, basically. So Seasons of the Witch, I'm not going to pull out the cards. I won't pull out the cards. I won't do it. Because this deck is being shown so much everywhere that, you know, it is a beautiful, beautiful oracle. It pairs magnificently with the Darkwood Tarot. I will be using that this month. So at the end of this month, you'll probably get a taster of how I've used the Darkwood when I'll be showing you this as well. The other oracle deck. So if I had an adjective for this one, it would be witchy. For this one, it's fae. It's fae. It's fae that kind of like is a, how can I put it? It's kind of like the stuff where as a 5-year-old, it would have scared the hell out of me. I love it. It's Victorian. I love these images. Yeah, Arthur Rackham, his work is just amazing. It's the Fairy Oracle by Rackham. It's another low Scarabeo deck. I won't show you too many of the images, but these are the backs. If this kind of category appeals to you and you have a spare bit of cash, this retails, I think, around the €15 mark. So it must be what, 16, $17 US dollars. What can I say? I was thinking, I wasn't using this deck, and I was thinking I was going to part with like the Fairy Oracle, and I'm like, what was I thinking? Why would I do that? So this is a tip. If you have a deck that you haven't been using and you've pushed to the side and you're going to put it into the charity pile, before you do that, or the donation pile, which is I think a good way, because I do actually sometimes give some of my decks to the Oxfam shop because of the fact that selling them here, it just, the cost of the postage is more than the actual cost of the deck. So sometimes I do actually donate at the local Oxfam shop. I think maybe somebody who's starting off in tarot can use them. And I just want to say, before you donate, please try one more time using a deck, because it might just open something in your mind. So these decks are the twin Oracle of Shapeshifters and the Oracle of Shadows and Light. They are Lucy Cavendish decks. Art is by Jasmine Beckett Griffith. Let's get the names right. These are very well-known decks. They retail around the €15 mark each. Easy to get hold of. The publisher is Beyond Words. I know a lot of people don't like the cardstock. Both the deck, but I find it fine. It's okay to use. I've not got a problem with it. Both the decks, this is the back of Oracle of Shapeshifters. Both the decks are very, very similar, and I know some people will be like, well, what's the point of getting both? But originally when I bought these decks, I was like, meh. Like, I fell for a gimmick. That's how I thought. I fell for a gimmick. Meh. But I've recently pulled a few cards from these, and they are so spot on. I mean, spookily, it's almost like she can read what's going on. And I found it unnerving, actually. And I've used these as altar cards. So I don't necessarily use this with a tarot reading. I use these as altar cards next to some other cards, probably with an affirmation next to it. So it kind of like helps to balance out that energy. If I had an adjective for this deck, I would call it insight, which is a very bland word, but deep insight. Actually, correction. The adjectives, it has to be a plural now for the Shapeshifters, and I'm not going to go through the Oracle of Shadows and Light. I said I'm not going to go through them, and then I want to go through them. But very quickly, for both of these decks, I would actually call them, the adjective I would use is wounded insight, our wounds. The key is on the back of the Oracle of Shadows and Light. These are the cards. Big bug-eyed girl. I know it's an imagery that not everybody loves, but my God, it just speaks so well. So I think also Lucy Cavendish has done a fair few other decks along similar themes. There's the Fairy Oracle. There's one also called Le Vampire, and then there's the Alice in Wonder. It's called the Wonderland. There's an Alice deck that she's done, which apparently has been republished matte, so that's on my wish list too. Yeah, I would recommend this deck. It's amazing. So quickly going on to a deck that I showed last week, but I want to put it in. So we've had already kind of like loads of adjectives. If I had for this spooky theme another adjective, it would be pagan. Pagan. I don't want to use the word witchy again, but yeah, the pagan arts. Pagan arts. Now this is I don't love how they've packaged this deck, but this is my Witch's Oracle by Sally Morningstar. I've just bought it recently, so I haven't had really time to work with it. This is going to go through a mod because those white borders are going to come off. I'm really scared I'm going to ruin it, but it has to be done. But I bought this deck. I think it's going to be great to use any time of year, not just this time of year. But I bought it because it will go with so many of my other decks, and I just know that. Like, I digress, so I won't go into it, but I have like Tarot of the Old Path, which I absolutely love, and I'm happy to do just a video on that, maybe a midweek video on that. I absolutely love that deck. It's a medieval deck, and of course I've also got the Anna Kay. And this deck, when I saw it on somebody's, I think it was Candy Soul and Soil, she had used this as part of some pairings that she was showing, and I saw it and it clicked how fantastic it would be with my pagan decks, especially Tarot of the Old Path. I love that deck, and that deck sits lonely on its own quite a bit because it's very hard to pair it. It's a very strong, distinctive pagan energy, Tarot of the Old Path, and so she sits there a bit lonely, and I love that deck. I really do. It's one of my first decks when I came back to tarot. I wouldn't read her for anyone else because she's just so unique for me. But then this deck, sorry, I should go into about this deck. This deck is amazing. The publisher is Edison, and I love the art. I think I picked it up for the arts alone. The guidebook has been done very well. And before I forget, let me show you quickly what Tarot of the Old Path is. If somebody's wondering what deck is she talking about, the other deck. This is Tarot of the Old Path. It's not a spooky, creepy deck, so I haven't put it into this video, but love this deck. This is an AGM deck. Yeah, just love it. So final deck. So this is, if I had an adjective for this deck, it would be secretive. And yeah, I don't know if I should start another hashtag, but perhaps people like this whole theme. And this is the Faeries Oracle by Brian Froud. Now, quickly just show you these because we're so long on time now. These are the cards. I know people have trouble reading this script, and I do too sometimes. That looks like carrots or parrots. Parrots? Carrots. See, I have trouble reading the script too. Gloominous loom. That I know. I can read that. Gloominous loom. But I love the art. Now, first of all, the art is amazing. The back, yeah, that's the backs. That's what the card backs are. But one of the things is anybody owns the Raven's Prophecy, which I don't. I'd like to get that, but I don't have it yet. I think this deck would go phenomenally maybe with the Raven's Prophecy. I don't know. But it's the borders, I think. There's also a tarot deck called Tarot de Cinquois. And perhaps again the borders, because of the borders, it might go. I think This deck is amazing. The fairy energy. I know it would go well with Tower of the Hidden Realm. That's another birthday or Christmas deck. I can't remember which pile it's in actually. It's in one of my hampers. But yeah, I think it would go really, really well with Tower of the Hidden Realm as well. As well as many other Fae, Witchy, or those kind of decks. Foresty decks. It would go well probably with Tower of the Secret Forest, which is a low Scarabeo deck. So I love this deck. I know some people have wondered, would I get it because it is a bit tricky. The guidebook by Brian Froud is amazing. Now, this is one of those decks where I've read the guidebook and I've been like, I didn't want to read that actually because you were too close to the truth. And it made me have to do something different. Well, it gave me a message to do something different that I didn't want to do. But, you know, that's the power of the deck, basically. I can use this deck on its own. I recently did a spread and I used the Hush Tarot with this just to see how it worked, and it worked so well. I mean, it just is yeah, a gorgeous tarot deck. And if any of you are wondering, you know, do I want to spend money? No, the only thing is that the cardstock is awful. Like, if they redid this with a better cardstock, I would definitely buy it again. But yeah, I am glad I got it. And this was another deck that I was about to just send off somewhere else, you know. But yeah, I'm going to stop there. So I don't know how to title this deck. I think this video, I was going to call it like the Spooky Decks VR to Elemental Cartomancy, which technically it is, but there's a lot of adjectives in there. And if anybody out there wants to play along with me and do a VR to kind of like, you know, adjectives to describe these, and I'll put the adjectives below, the ones that I can remember, feel free to play along with it. And if you have your own adjectives to your decks, you know, add them on as well. But I'm glad I was able to do this today. I just want to wish everybody a fantastic beginning to October. It's my birthday month, so I'm always excited. So yeah, and good to see you all. See you all next week. Bye-bye.